We're going to start up chapter 25 tonight. And chapter 25, we're going to be talking about the parable of the 10 virgins. So we're going to still continue that same thought process that we ended last time in chapter 24 of Christ continuing to teach on how we need to always be ready. That one day He's going to come back. One day there's going to be the end of the world. One day there's going to be a judgment. And if we're not ready, then we're ultimately going to lose out on that reward. The chapter starts off by saying in verse 1, it says, "Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom." So when we're looking at this parable, one of the first things we need to realize is who this bridegroom is. And this bridegroom is going to represent Christ. In verse 2 it says, "And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish." So here we have the bridegroom, looking at these verses, representing Christ. We have the 10 virgins, symbolizing people, anticipating the Lord's return. Okay? 5 were wise, prepared, and 5 were foolish, unprepared. So just like I said before, he's going along the same guidelines of what he's been talking about at the end of chapter 24. He's trying to get everybody to understand that there's going to be a separation one of these days. You're either going to be found under one of two categories, faithful or unfaithful. And I have up here Matthew chapter 13. Now, we touched on this a little bit last week. It says in verse 47, it says, "Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered up every kind, and which, when it was full, they drew to shore, sat down, gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angel shall come forth, sever the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth." And here we are starting off the chapter talking about Christ the bridegroom and talking about 2 groups of people. 5 virgins were wise, 5 virgins were foolish, anticipating the Lord's return, and all of this is to be prepared at the end of times. To always be prepared, because like we talked about last week, it's going to be like a thief in the night. None of us are going to expect it. So Christ is continually going through one example after another, trying to get everybody spiritually minded, spiritually ready, because being ready is an essential part of our lives as Christians, is to be ready, watch and pray, just like we talked about. So, we have the people waiting for Christ, and in this parable, 10 virgins are being used. When the bridegroom Christ arrives, only those who are ready are welcomed, while the unprepared are going to be left out. Just like we went back and looked at Matthew 13:47. The good vessels, they were gathered. The bad ones, they were cast away, ultimately facing the furnace of fire where there's gnashing of teeth. A separation is what I'm wanting to harp on here and hone into. A separation of the faithful and unfaithful is what's going to happen when Christ comes back. When the end of the world, the question came up at the beginning of Matthew 24, well, when is the end of the world? Well, Christ is answering that, and He's trying to give them some guidance and let them know, for one, you don't know when the end of the world is, only the Father does. So what does that mean? That means you need to be ready. You need to live a faithful life. So a clear separation right off the bat being looked at here as two groups are being discussed. There's going to be consequences for those who were not ready for when that bridegroom comes back. It goes on to say in the next few verses, it says, they that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps, while the bridegroom tarried. They all slumbered and slept. So let's think about this. The wise virgins took oil for their lamps. And what does this show? This shows them being prepared. These are the smart virgins. These are the ones who took it all serious. They want to be prepared when that bridegroom comes back. But the foolish ones, the unfaithful group, they didn't do that. And were left out when the bridegroom arrived. And we're going to see that. The lesson here, just like I have up on the screen, is really reinforced here when we look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. When we look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, starting in verse 1, it says, but of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. Okay? You should be prepared. You should have been heeding to what I've been teaching you. Ye are the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of the darkness. And verse 6 says, therefore, let us not sleep, as do others, but let us watch and be sober. Watch and be sober. And here we are looking at Matthew 25, verses 3 through 4. And we can see here that the unwise virgins, they weren't ready. They slumbered and they slept. They weren't thinking about, what's going to happen when that bridegroom comes back. What is going to happen? And that's how we should be thinking today. What are we going to be doing when Christ comes back? What's he going to catch us in when he comes back as a thief in the night? So all believers, all those who are faithful, are to watch and be sober, just like we read here in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, living as children of light. Okay, this is the message Jesus is trying to get across. Let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. Watch and pray. Okay? Unexpected. You're not going to know. You're going to be surprised. Spiritual readiness, essential for all Christians, for all those anticipating the Lord's return. It's not enough to simply expect Christ to come back, but it's all about being prepared when he does come back. We can expect him to come back. The unwise virgins expected one day for the bridegroom to come back. But the difference between them and the wise virgins is they slumbered and slept. They were lazy. They didn't take it serious. They knew he was coming back, but when he did come back, guess what? They were found in a state of unfaithfulness because they weren't living the life. They weren't living faithfully and alert that this is real, that this could happen at any time. And Jesus is telling us that throughout this whole message. You don't know when this is going to happen. Only the Father knows. Verse 6 of Matthew 25, it says, "And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him." So let's think about this. The parable of the 10 virgins. It says, "Go ye out to meet him." Here we are looking at this parable, illustrating when the Lord comes, only those who are prepared are going to be welcomed. Only those who are prepared will have a glorious day that day when he comes back. But unto those who aren't prepared, unto those that are unfaithful, that's not going to be a great day for them because they didn't take it serious. 1 Thessalonians 4:16 says, "For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, and with a voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God. The dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be called up together with them in the clouds, to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord." The wise virgins were ready. "Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him." They were ready to meet him. But the other group wasn't that ready. You know, when we look at verses like 1 Thessalonians 4:16 through 17, it just further reinforces the idea that believers must be ready at all times. All times. Because the Lord will descend unexpectedly and gather those who are prepared to meet him. And that's what we should be motivated by, to know that to be found faithful in his sight when he comes back, what a great feeling that would be. And to know what we have in store for us. But for those who are unprepared, it's going to be really bad for them because they're going to miss out. They're going to miss out on their crown and their reward that's promised to all of us who obey the gospel. The next few verses goes on to say, "Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps, and the foolish said unto the wise, Give us your oil, our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, Not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut." So let's look at this. When we look at this section of verses here, the door was shut. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. The wise virgins were ready and obedient, prepared for the bridegroom's arrival at any moment. Okay, that's pretty obvious. We see that. The foolish ones were unprepared, and when they try to get ready at the last minute, like a lot of people today do, the last minute, guess what? It was too late. The door was shut. All these people waiting for the last minute on their deathbeds to say, I think now's when I want to do something. Well, guess what? That may be too late. What was that, Clark?
It is too late.
It's too late. So, Jesus is trying to teach us a lesson here. Don't wait your whole life thinking that tomorrow's going to be here, because we have no promise of tomorrow. We have no promise of the next hour. So why wouldn't we be ready at all times? Spiritual readiness is not something that can be postponed. Jesus emphasizes the importance of being prepared at all times as the opportunity to enter salvation, participation in the kingdom, all of that you decided that you wanted to put off. It may be too late one day and the door's going to shut. The shutting of the door, when you think about it, this is a pretty powerful statement to even make. And the door was shut. Once the opportunity is passed, it can't be regained. Once the Lord comes back and judgment is made and the world is ended and the resurrection has happened, that door's shut. It's too late. For all those today who never obey the gospel, they pass away on this earth. They had their whole life of opportunity to do what God wanted them to do, and they died. They died in sin. The door is being shut. So I have up here, Jesus emphasizes that we are to always be ready and obedient, like the wise virgins. We never know when the door will be shut. So, this really echoes what I have up here for Luke chapter 13, 23 through 25. When we look at this, many will seek to enter after the door shut, but will be denied. So let's look at this. It says, Then said one unto him, Lord, are there few that be saved? And he said unto them, Strive to enter in at the strait gate, for many, I say unto you, will seek to enter in, and shall not be able. When once the master of the house is risen up, and hath shut to the door, and ye begin to stand without, and to knock at the door, saying, Lord, Lord, open unto us. And he shall answer and say unto you, I know you not whence ye are. Think about that. Everybody waiting, and then it's suddenly too late. The door shuts. The door shuts, they're denied. The master's response is going to be, I know you not. And when he says, I know you not, that's a clear sign that you just lived your life in spiritual negligence. You rejected living a godly life, and you lived a selfish life to your own lusts and temptations. So let's look at this. When we look at this slide here, and we look at Matthew 25, and we're looking at Luke 23, this is really an encouragement for us to examine ourselves, to ask ourselves, how are we living? Am I demonstrating today in my life readiness and obedience if Christ comes back? Are we taking Christ's teaching seriously? When we look at this, do we believe that there may come a day that it's just too late? We denied it for so long that it's just too late. The Lord's come back, and it's too late. Really, this ought to encourage every one of us as Christians to act now in our lives, to live faithfully, to stand up for the truth and realize that every day could be our last, and bringing honor and glory to God while we're on this earth. Every day. And we don't know. We don't know when that day's coming, and that's why we have to be ready. So the door, when we're talking about this door being shut, it reminds me, let me turn there. Let's go to Matthew chapter 7. We have yet another instance in Matthew chapter 7. In verse 13 and 14, that goes right along with this. It says, Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. There's going to be a lot of people who were not ready. A lot of people falling into the unwise virgins category. It says, Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. And in Matthew 25, in verse 13, I don't think I've got it up there yet, but in Matthew 25, verse 13, it goes right along with this too. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. And that's the message of this parable of the 10 virgins. That right there, that very statement, watch therefore, for ye know neither the day or the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. So think about that. We started off this chapter in this series of Matthew 24. It started off talking about the destruction of Jerusalem, and then he switched topics and he started talking about the end of times. And here we are. Every inch we make it further and further into the chapters, he gets more and more detailed as to laying it out clear. There's not one person on this earth that knows when the end's going to come except for the Father. The door may be shut one of these days, and you better be ready. In verses 11 through 13, he goes on and he says, afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. Think about that. How serious do we take the teachings of Christ? If we truly believe that He's going to come back one day and judge us, that this world's going to end one day, are we really taking Him serious? Are we living a life that's going to show that we took Him serious? The wise virgins took Him serious. The foolish virgins did not. Do we allow the teachings of Christ to change our thinking and our attitudes? Or do we think we know more than He does? Do we think that we can just live our life however we want? And we know that's not the case, and that's not what He wants. If He didn't care how we lived our lives, then He would have never took the time to even bring up this parable, that one day there's going to be a separation. He would have never even made this statement of, I know you not. For Him to even say, I know you not, means there's a pattern and a structure of right and wrong, and not everybody's going to make it to heaven one day. If you're not all in the same pattern and structure, Christ is saying, you're not going to be ready for the bridegroom. You're not going to be ready for me when I come back if you're not doing things the way I laid them out to be done. He's going to say, I know you not. Be ready. The timing of Christ's return is unknown. Preparedness is essential. Take Christ's teaching seriously. Genuine faith involves right attitudes and right actions. Self-examination, the parable encourages believers, Christians, to reflect on their spiritual state and make necessary changes before it's too late, before the door is shut. In Matthew 7:21 through 23, it goes right along with this. He says, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. The 5 virgins who were not ready, they expected the bridegroom, but when he came back, the bridegroom wasn't happy with their performance. Their attitude and their readiness just was not there. And that bridegroom's going to say, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. The attitudes that we've been talking about are necessary for anyone and everyone to enter the kingdom. It's necessary not only for us to have the proper attitudes, but to let those attitudes lead us to do the will of God. just like the wise virgins. They believed the bridegroom was going to come back. They knew what the bridegroom expected, and they were ready. Their attitude and their respect for the teachings of that bridegroom motivated them to do the will of that bridegroom and of God. They changed their lives. It's not only important to do outwardly what the will of God says, but really we need to also be motivated inwardly. Because if we don't have the inward man attitude correct, then you might as well forget about doing anything outwardly. Because if you're not spiritually well inwardly, you probably have no motivation outwardly to live a godly life and to put up with temptations and persecutions from those in the world, ridicule. The inward man needs a proper attitude. So the parable of the 10 virgins, as we go through this, to sum this up, the 10 virgins represent people that are anticipating the Lord's second coming. Okay, they all 10 expected it. They're divided into 2 different groups. The 5 wise virgins were expecting the Lord to come at any time and were ready. The 5 foolish virgins, they were also expecting Him to come, but not anytime soon. They weren't ready. The parable underscores the importance of our looking for and expecting the Lord to return. And that's the whole purpose of this parable, the whole purpose of this section of teaching from Christ, is to build on the very fact of the questions that were asked by His disciples earlier on. Well, what about the end of the world? Well, He's telling them right now about the end of the world. And the only guidance He can give them is, y'all need to watch and pray and be ready. Live the best life you can in the godliest manner you can. Because only the Father knows when all this is going to happen. Christ said, I can't pinpoint a day for you as to when this is going to happen. You know, I can tell you when Jerusalem's going to get destroyed, but I can't tell you when the whole world's going to get destroyed, because that's a whole nother universal event from what the destruction of Jerusalem is. So, I know this was a short class, but honestly, I don't think it would be good for us to go into the next parable here, just for sake of time, and plus I think it's good to put full focus on these parables. So at this time, I'm just going to ask if there's any questions or comments on the parable of the 10 virgins before we do close class.
Well, I just think about what he said in verse 12 about, he says, I know you not. In John 9:31.
What you got there, Clark?
It says, now we know that God heareth not sinners. But if any man be a worshiper of God and doeth His will, him he heareth. They didn't do what they were told, so He did hear what they were saying. When they knocked, He did hear.
The door was shut.
So God knows. God knows His people.
Sin separates us.
So He was the good shepherd. The shepherd knows His sheep.
That's right.
And I don't think there's enough being taught on that Job's going to begin with us anyway. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know how detailed a whole lot of people really get on it. Obviously, there's a lot of confusion in the world about the end of times. But Jesus lays out things pretty clear as to what to expect.
I don't know if I've ever known anyone to link the parables with, being prepared for the second coming. I don't know if I've ever heard preaching.
Oh, really? Okay, of the 10 virgins? Wow.
Could be you.
Okay.
Missing it too.
Let's talk, you know, that's,
When it occurred, these are the Matthew 24 and 25, these are the best classes I've ever.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you.
see, we know when we talk about the bridegroom coming, that's the second return of Christ, when he comes to get his bride, which is his church, his kingdom.
Yeah.
I mean, Revelation
right.
tells the Spirit and the bride say come. They tell him Jesus to come. Then something else I thought about too, even if these people claim they got the hidden realm of the Holy Spirit, all that stuff, they still don't know when he's coming.
No, they
The
don't
Holy
know.
Spirit don't know. Jesus don't know, only God knows.
So the Father knows.
And if they truly had the gift of the Holy Spirit, they would know that. Instead of these guys out here fooling people, till they have it and they know when the Lord's coming.
Well, every prediction they throw out comes and
They
goes.
try to prove they're smarter than God, but it backfired on them every time.
That's right. Anybody else? All right. Well, we'll end class.